My name is Juan Paulino. I was born in Guam in 1938 in a little village of Idanrahan, and I'm a Vietnam veteran.
So what year did you enlist in?
1962.
And why did you pick the service branch you joined?
I know I was going to get drafted, or I either join different services because I don't want to be an infantry. So the reason I did join the army, because that's the only opening they have that can pick what I want doing in the service, which is the army.
What was your experience in boot camp or your training?
I went to basic training and I not boot camp, it's basic training for the army. Boot camp is Navy. But I went to basic training in Fort Ord here in California, and I got there in November, and it was cold because I came from Guam, and the temperature really different.
Process you went through after you went through basic training.
After basic training, when I enlisted, I already know that I am going to aircraft mechanic school in Fort Houston, Virginia. So after basic training in Fort Ord, I went to Fort Houston, Virginia for almost 5 months of aircraft mechanic. And at that time, that's the time that one morning during our formation, they called out about 5 of us and said, "You gentlemen are going to APO 963, and we're wondering where in the hell is APO 963, and we found out later it's Vietnam."
Where specifically were you stationed in Vietnam?
I was stationed when I got there first. I was stationed in Tan Son Nhut. That's the airport. That's the airport right next to Saigon, and they also got a military base there with the civilian airport.
So what was it like when you arrived in Vietnam?
It was hot and humid, and the first thing that they tell us is we went into like an older room, and they tell us what not to do because of venereal disease and other diseases. And that is almost everybody that got in that place. That's the first thing that they tell them about those things.
You just have to stay safe.
Yes.
So what specifically were you doing on the base or when you were there?
I went to Fort Eustis for fixed-wing mechanic, which is they call it 671. But there was only one fixed-wing plane, and there are 5 of us. So what they did, they assigned one guy. His name is Wilson, and the 4 of us were tasked to work on helicopters, and we learned on the job.
So you were tasked to, work on a different type of plane, and then because there's only one plane, they put you on helicopters.
Right.
So it was basically brand new. You had no experience working on helicopters?
No, because the school I went to was for fixed wing and helicopters. You learn as you go along.
Did you ever fly in a helicopter? Did you do anything go on?
Yes, whenever you fix a helicopter, whatever major part you repair, they need to test flight it, so we always go on 1 hour's test flight around Tan Son Nhut, and we can see the city and everything. Like, it's nice up there while you're doing a test flight, which is routine after a major repair on helicopters. And those they were arming them with machine guns and rockets. It's just patchwork. I mean, just patch it together, put it together, see how it works. And that's what we're using for gunships. And we became a gunship, and we escort helicopters that doesn't have guns. So we always go on, and one of the things that as a mechanic, you can volunteer. There's a crew chief. He'll be flying on the right side, and you as a gunner on the left side, and that's a volunteer, and that's how I got into flying.
So you volunteered to be a gunner.
Yes.
So when you're flying in the air, did you see any combat?
A lot. I mean, it's the special forces at that time tell us where to go, where to shoot, and all that. And we always carry an observer, a Vietnamese observer, but those guys do not speak English, and some of them are afraid to fly, and they just sit in the middle and saying anything. And that's all, the guy in the middle, the Vietnamese observer, supposed to tell us when to shoot or not
And
to
who to shoot at? Who's
right.
that? What went through your head when you experienced combat?
Oh, I flew a lot in that one, but when you're up in the air in Vietnam, it's nice. It's a lot cooler than on the ground. It's a beautiful place, but when we start to go in and accomplish what the mission wherever we're going to shoot, I always ask myself, what in the hell am I doing here? Because you get a little scared, but after the guns start going off, that all went away. You don't think of anything like that. It's kind of fun. Maybe you consider it like an arcade, but that's what you feel. You feel that you're not going to get hurt or anything. It's just that.
You just feel invincible when you're shooting.
I think so. The smell of the powder and all that is nothing. I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's not fun, but it's kind of fun. Well, after the shooting, we normally land to see what we did accomplish, or they always have, they call it body count, and you see a lot of times there'll be more dead. ARVN, which is the Army of South Vietnam, and the Vietnamese, I mean the bad guys are not covered. And what really gets me on those things is, my God, these guys are wearing pajamas, straw hats, and flip-flop, and they're beating us. That really bothers me, to look at those things.
So seeing all those things, did it affect you anyway?
Not really, because it goes away after you take off, because it's behind you.
So you just
go back to base, you go back to the club, you go back to Saigon.
So
it's nice.
You just kept busy, kept your mind off it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When you were there.
Right. The clubs, the drinking of beer or whatever.
So after your rotation was up and you came back to the States, what was it like?
Well, nothing. I mean, it's daily routine again, where you train and train. It's almost like you play lacrosse, you practice and practice, but there's nothing in it until you really play. So that's how we feel. Hey, we don't want to just practice and practice. We want to go back to where it was fun, or fun for us, and fun for me, maybe not for other people, but I'd rather be in Vietnam than here in the States.
My name is Keenan Paulino. I was born in Bremerton, Washington, and I served in Afghanistan.
So what year did you enlist in?
I enlisted in 2010.
And what branch of the military did you serve in, and why?
I joined the United States Marine Corps because the Marines, I heard it was like the most badass of all the branches, so that's why I joined it.
And how many tours did you serve in?
I did one tour to Afghanistan.
So what was your daily routine in Afghanistan?
You actually never know. Every day is different depending on the job or the mission that we have for the day. Most days we would wake up first thing in the morning, get the trucks ready. Well, trucks would be ready the day prior, but check out weapons, get everything set up, and get ready for the convoys.
At any point did you experience combat?
Throughout the deployment, my platoon hit some IEDs. It was never my vehicle personally, but I was on the convoys where some vehicles were hit by IEDs.
And when that was going on, what went through your head?
Well, the first thing, I was just, the first time I saw an IED go off, I just saw a tire fly and I was like, yo, that's a tire in the air. And then next thing you know, I was like, wow, they just hit an IED. And then we have like all these procedures that we go through. And what we would do if you saw a green star cluster or like a flare go up, that's how you knew they were good. And it was like a good 2 minutes where we were just waiting. And then finally, they shot a green star cluster up saying that everyone in the vehicle was okay, but the vehicle could not move.
After your rotation was up, what was it like returning home?
So the first day we got back, it was probably one of the most awesome days ever. It was great. My family was there waiting. It was a good time, but it was also overwhelming just being around a lot of other people and like having so many people in an area and not being, and just like, the first thing I did after we turned in our weapons, I got in the vehicle and the second I got into my mom's car, I was like trying to find where, I was like looking for my weapon, and then they were like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, nothing, because I just didn't realize where I was. But it was kind of overwhelming just being around like a lot of people. Yeah.
In your own words, can you please define PTSD for me?
I really don't know what that thing is until later on, but during our time, I don't know anybody who was diagnosed as whatever you're asking me, that PTSD. In the group that I know of, on the people that I was deployed with, nobody ever was diagnosed that I know of, PTSD. Not like now, where I got every veteran that comes out of Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever they fight, they always, I don't know whether that's a new invention, or a new definition of that disease that the psychiatrists come up with, whoever come up with. But in our time, I don't think anybody had that,
Or at least it
that
wasn't
I know.
known. Or at least it wasn't known, yeah.
that I know of.
So the current definition for PTSD is a disorder that develops in some people who have seen or lived through a shocking, scary, or dangerous event. And some of the symptoms are flashbacks, bad dreams, or frightening thoughts. And now with the current definition, do you think that you experienced any of these things after fighting the Vietnam War?
No, I don't think so.
But you said earlier that you think a lot of people in the current wars, like in the Iraq and Afghanistan war, are suffering from PTSD. Why do you think that you and the people that you knew in Vietnam didn't really get or experience PTSD, but people are getting it now?
I think it's the generation difference, the way we were brought up.
Do you think you could define PTSD in your own words for us?
PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. In my own words, I would say it's dealing with and coping with situations that you've been in, or things that have maybe altered your mind or changed you in a certain way, and just being able, or like trying to cope with things.
So I'm actually gonna define PTSD for you, and when you search it up on the internet, The definition is PTSD is a disorder that develops in some people who have seen or lived through a shocking, scary, or dangerous event. And some of the symptoms include flashbacks, reliving the trauma over and over, bad dreams, or frightening thoughts. After hearing the actual definition off the internet, or textbook definition, whatever you want to call it, do you think that you experience any of these symptoms?
I don't know if like necessarily like all of the symptoms, but like other things, like a lot of like sometimes like I did feel coming back, like I had very bad anxiety and like kind of trouble sleeping sometimes, and then maybe like dreams, not necessarily nightmares, just dreams about like being over there, not stuff that like super freaked me out or anything, but just I would think about being in Afghanistan a lot.
Do you think that you know any family or friends that may have PTSD as well?
Personally, I know quite a few people who suffer from PTSD very like severely, and it's like in my eyes, I think they're okay. Like I don't see it. I think they're normal. That's just how they act. That's how I know them. But coming back and listening to like others and the way that other people see them, I can definitely see that there's some problems going on in their head. Like when you come back and there's brand new guys who have not deployed yet, and they think that the people that you're around are just loopy, and that's when I realized that some of like the people that I was around and some of my other Marines were actually really like messed up in the head.
In our previous interview, we had learned PTSD wasn't well known amongst previous military generations. Why do you think it wasn't as well known as it is today?
I think that previous generations of military members didn't know as much about PTSD because like they've been doing more studies about it now, and they found out more information about how traumatic events can really make you like mess with your head and harm you. And now there's so much more awareness within the military. I know for me personally, I always was given numbers and different like ways to talk about PTSD, or they would give me different options of people to contact, and there was just, we would go through, we would have like meetings, and they would just let us know ways we can get out there and get more information on how to get help if we needed it.
Do you think veterans with PTSD are viewed or treated any differently than anyone else?
My personal opinion, I don't really know, but I do see a lot of things on TV and different like helplines and stuff for veterans with PTSD. So I guess it's a big thing out there, and especially with the recent war we've had in like the past 10 years or whatever, like there's a lot of people that have come back messed up in the head, and I think that people do look at them like differently, but they more just want to help, like, or like bring awareness, because some people just don't know that they're messed up.